and welcome to Candidate Question Time 2014 with me, Jonny Meah. This year we bring you a special live broadcast from UniTV, which gives you the opportunity to hear from the candidates running for full-time officers. To start, I'm going to ask a general question to each of the candidates, which will give them the chance to answer. This will then be followed by a manifesto question, and then they'll have the chance to speak amongst themselves with any additional comments. Here's the main part. Each of the candidates need your vote, and you can do that by going on sussexstudent.com/vote. The voting opens on Monday at 9 AM. That's Monday, the 17th of February. And you can also continue to vote until 5 PM on the 21st of February. Most importantly, though, you can have your say tonight. You can tweet in with the hashtag Sussex Elections. That's the hashtag Sussex Elections. Or you can go on the UniTV Facebook page as well. And I'll be reading them out throughout the show, so don't worry, you've got plenty of time. Tonight, we're going to be speaking to the candidates, but to see their full manifestos, make sure you head over to sussexstudent.com/elections. Here's a little video to show you exactly how and where you can vote.
Is quick and easy. All you have to do is go to sussexstudent.com/vote and log in with your Sussex username and password. You can log in at any time during the voting week to vote for all the candidates. Here you'll see all the positions that we're electing in this set of elections. For this test, we'll be voting for President Cat. Just click on Vote Now to see all the candidates. On this page, you'll see all the candidates and their manifestos and photos. Once you've read the manifestos, scroll to the bottom to vote. We use the alternative vote system, so you rank the candidates in the order of preference, starting with your first preference. You don't have to click all the preference boxes, and you can reopen nominations if you'd rather the elections were rerun in that category. If you want to register that you don't want to vote for any candidate in this position, or to reopen nominations, click Spoil Vote. Once you've selected your preferences, click Submit Vote. This will take you back to the screen with all the positions. You can log out now and log back in at any time during the voting week, or you can vote for the other positions. It's as easy as that.
So first up is the Operations Officer. Now, the Operations Officer is responsible for overseeing the union's finances and also responsible for overseeing the union's commercial services. Here are this year's candidates' introductions.
Hi, my name's Ben and I'd like to be your Operations Officer. I've been your student trustee for 2 years, I've been a union volunteer and I work in the co-op. My manifesto is based around opening up a new nightclub in town with a similar deal to the Globe to create new revenue for the union. I'd also like to expand the co-op store, to take the Falmer House free shop online with a free cycle style website, to provide a USSU points card for regular customers, campaign to save East Slope from the university's campus plans, and encourage students to be more environmentally friendly with on-campus composting and better bike storage. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Dan Greenberg. I'm running for Operations Officer. Some of my main manifesto points are to introduce a union cafe on campus in the back of Falmer Bar, also to campaign the university to provide a replacement for East Slope Bar in the campus master plan, and also to provide more events on and off campus at the union bars. I also want to expand union computers to offer financing and leasing opportunities for students and to increase the number of secure bike sheds on campus. I also want to introduce participatory budgeting for students to decide where the money in the union spent. So vote for Dan.
Hi, I'm Beth McGee and I'm running for Operations Officer. If elected, I'll have three main priorities for our campus. The first will be to make our union outlets more competitive with university services, and I intend to do that by introducing a loyalty card scheme into all shops and bars. Secondly, I'd like to make student life easier and affordable, and I intend to do that by introducing a Globe Express to run between campus and the Globe in town. And finally, I'd like to make our campus greener, and I intend to do that by expanding and improving our cycle pass and reducing waste at Co-op. If all of that sounds good to you, then vote for me, Beth McGee.
Apologies for that slight technical difficulty, but welcome Ben Perkins, Dan Greenberg and Beth McGee. Welcome along, guys. I'm going to ask you all a general question first. You'll each have the chance to answer it. I will be starting with you, Ben, and the question is, should the union give the university its commercial services in return for a substantially higher annual grant from them?
Well, my answer to that question is pretty much in all circumstances, no. And the reason for that is because I think our bars and our shops are fundamental to the union's membership engagement. And there are a lot of students that aren't that engaged in the union who don't want to go out and campaign on things. But the one way that we can get them involved is through our bars. Most students will have sat in Falmer or Eastlake Bar. Also, I think when we run the commercial services, their outstanding service is protected, and so is the student employment that it provides. And speaking from experience, I can say employment in our outlets can really enhance your university experience. There's also no guarantees of this. The university might well say, we'll give you all this money for all these years if you take the services, but 10, 20 years down the line, that might not necessarily be the case anymore. I'd also say that it would make it much more difficult for students to be represented by the union because it's not independent, but if it was a massive, massive, massive sum of money, then I would consider putting it to a referendum for students.
Okay, thank you, Ben. We'll now move to Dan. Dan, should the union, same question again, should the union give the university its commercial services in return for a substantially higher annual grant from them?
I'd also say absolutely not under any circumstances. As Ben said, the university's student union is actually the first point of call for a lot of students who aren't involved in the union in other ways. And by losing that, we obviously lose our connection to the students and a lot of the time lose the knowledge of what students want. And I also think that the financial independence of the union is essential, and if you're depending on the university for this massive grant, already we have a large grant from them, but if you're extending that even further, then you are sort of losing your financial independence as a union. I think that's very important, and I think that's what we've worked to achieve through our partnership with other outside companies like Drinking Brighton, and also with the Southern Cooperative Group. We're maintaining our independence on our own terms through partnerships that we're doing with contracts that we've written up ourselves, and I think that's really important. But I think also, if it did come to it and it was a serious issue that was actually put forward by the university at some point during the year or during any time,
Dan,
I
I'm
think
going to have to stop you there.
a referendum would be good.
But thank you very much. Candidate Beth McGee, here we go. This is your turn now. Should the union give the university its commercial services in return for a substantially higher annual grant from them?
So I think it's quite a tricky debate because on one hand, there's no guarantee that the uni would consult with students in the way that the union does, or that they would employ students. And at the moment, the shops and bars employ hundreds of students and guarantee them all a fair wage. And I think that's vital. So there would be no guarantee of that. However, a bigger grant could be used on the other areas of the union, such as advice and representation for sports, societies, clubs, the other areas that other students might feel are incredibly important. And I know that there's some students are quite unhappy with how much money there is and how it's spent, and so that could be resolved. But I do think that most students feel that they're a bit disillusioned by the way that the union's going at the moment. The university is going, sorry, at the moment. So I'd put it to a vote. But I feel that most students would probably feel the same as me and have a bit of fear at the way the university is going.
Okay, Beth, I'm going to have to end you there as well, sorry. Okay, so that is the general question for each of you. What I'll now do is I'll ask each of the candidates a question based on their personal manifesto. So we'll start with you, Dan. Your personal manifesto question is, what is participatory budgeting and why do you think students will be interested in it? You have 2 minutes.
Participatory budgeting, I can even say it, is essentially when a section of the budget for the year for the union is set aside and it's then put to vote for students as to where it's actually spent. I think students would be really interested in this because at the moment, although we have our yearly updates, of our finances online. A lot of the time students don't read that and they don't really feel involved in where this money is going, who's deciding this, and all the people who work upstairs in the union building in Falmer House. So I think it's really important that to engage more with the union, to actually see what the union does, which a lot of students don't see. It is important to have a part of that decision-making process. And yeah, I feel that a lot of students would be a lot more inclined to vote when we've seen in asking students for strategy plan and stuff like that. We've had thousands of responses, which is excellent. So I really feel that students would want to do that and essentially just have a say of what happens in their union, because it is theirs and it's not just the people who work in it, it's the people who are members of it.
Okay, and I mean, expand on that a bit further by you saying what they wouldn't, it's not just them. What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, not just the people who work in it.
Yeah.
Well, obviously you've got the people who make the union happen, and those people are obviously the student staff who work in the outlets like the Co-op and Falmer Bar and East Slope Bar and the shop. And I think that we've got staff consultation forums within them at the moment, which help students who are student staff decide what happens. But I also think that there are so many members of the union who aren't involved, who aren't employed by the union, and they need to have a say with where their money's spent. I mean, they're the ones spending money in those bars, and they're the ones who are funding their activities themselves and their societies and their sports clubs and all the other things that the union provide for us. So it's really important that they have a say, even though they don't at the moment, they sort of need to.
Okay, thank you, Dan. We'll now move on to Beth. Your personal manifesto question is, why is a social space, as you said in your manifesto, why is a social space for union employees and volunteers a priority for you?
It's a priority because at the moment we are, as a member of the union staff, we're severely lacking staff space in the Co-op, in Falmer Bar, in East Slope Bar and the union shop, and there is nowhere at the moment for union volunteers within Falmer House. And I think that it's not just the union staff, it's also society committees, anyone who volunteers for the union. I think that these are the people that contribute to how the union runs, and they make it fantastic. And they spend all day on campus, and it's not necessarily a comfortable or affordable thing to do at the moment when you're not able to have anywhere to heat up food or just make yourself a cup of tea, which is really simple, but it just makes it a lot easier to spend the day on campus and contribute to the union. So I think that it's vital that we do that. And if it turns out that it's something that appeals to all students, then it can be expanded. And these are the sorts of like rooms that can be created across campus for all students. But at the moment, I feel that those people are vital to the union, and so that's why it would be a priority.
Okay, so just develop a little bit what you're saying about it being potentially expanded. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that I know I think maybe one or more of the welfare officers are hoping to increase the amount of microwaves that are on campus, and I think that's something that does appeal to all students. It's just the ability to bring your own food and kind of make being on campus all day a financially viable option. So if it did come across, or it did emerge that this was something that would appeal to all students, and not necessarily just union staff, because a lot of other students spend time on campus, then it could be something that's expanded.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Now, finally, Ben Perkins, your personal manifesto question is, you plan to redistribute resources. Who will gain resources and who will lose resources?
Well, it's not so easy to casually say exactly which departments would and wouldn't lose resources, but I have concerns about the direction of the union at the moment from being a trustee and the way they're guiding it. And I think that the fundamental function of the union is to offer advice and representation to its members and to protect them. And I would prioritise that in redistribution and make the advice centre amazing. I mean, it's already great, but it has so much potential to be something really good, particularly at a time when the university and the student body aren't necessarily seeing eye to eye. So that might be really beneficial for a lot of students.
And when you say making the advice centre amazing, how do you intend to do that? What would you say? What's your intention?
Well, when I look at the staffing structure of the union, I think it's an understaffed area. I mean, there are 2 advisors up there, and I know from personal experience you can't get an appointment quick enough. Sometimes you have to wait far too long for it to even be useful anymore. So fundamentally more advisors and more staff on the ground to make that service run better.
Okay. Now we're going to give the opportunity now for all 3 of you to raise any potential comments that you may have that each of you have said. Please make sure it's all fairly spoken, and you have 1 minute to speak amongst yourselves about what's been raised.
Can I ask Beth something? With the student, the volunteer and employee space, what do you see the common room's role in this? Because the common room is sort of a relatively underused space at the moment. It's not often busy, and I feel like that is a space where people could go.
It very much could be. That could be.
Do you mean just allocating somewhere or something?
I don't yet have a room that's suitable, and to be honest, we're lacking a bit of space in Falmer at the moment. So it would be great if we could use a space like that. That could be used.
I've also heard that there's, I don't know if this is 100% true or not, but I have heard from a couple of people that there's funding potentially available to create a mezzanine floor in the common room. So would that be something that, obviously that's going to increase the space in there, but you would use that for that, so to speak, and exclusively just for sort of people who work for the union and exclude sort of other students in there?
Can I just get Ben? What do you think about this?
I think with regards to the mezzanine floor, I think that's actually allocated to be a postgraduate common room, so that would be out of the way. And I do see what Dan is saying, that space is limited and that is a problem. But on this one, I do agree with Beth, because obviously we both work over in the co-op and we know how poor the conditions are, and that's why I've included on my manifesto to show the Southern Cooperative how important it is that store is extended, because the working conditions are poor. Okay,
and Dan, I mean, obviously you see it from a different perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see it from a different perspective because I work in the bars, and obviously anyone who works in East Upper Falmouth Bar, there is obviously space available for us to relax in our breaks, and that's not a problem for us. I accept it might be a problem for people who work in the co-op and potentially people who work in the shop as well, but I'm sure people who work in the shop are willing to come over to Falmouth Bar, but there's always space for them, and we're the same company, we're all part of the union, we welcome them with open arms, obviously. But I do think that maybe with the co-op that might be sort of a more, I don't know how a student space in the Falmouth House is going to work with that. Sort of
I don't think it necessarily is just for the co-op either. I've spoken to people at East Slope and at Falmouth Bar, and I consulted with them before I put together my manifesto, and they both said that they're lacking. It's not necessarily also to do with your breaks. We've got space for our breaks, but it's just people who spend all day on campus.
Okay, guys, we're going to have to end that one there, I'm afraid. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed for coming along today, and good luck to all three of you. Remember, you can get involved. You can use any format you want. Facebook, Twitter. Twitter, you've got your hashtag Sussex Elections. You can also go on the UniTV Facebook page as well. Next up, we have the Communications Officer. The Communications Officer round, potential Communications Officer. This officer is key to ensuring that you are adequately informed. They use the key media outlets within the uni to help do that. Let's have a look at their introductions.
Hi guys, my name's Brie Allegretti and I'm running to be your comms officer next year. I want to continue the work that I've already done as media development officer and ensure that student media remains and continues to be accountable, beneficial and communal. I also want to make sure that students from underrepresented schools within the union have an active voice and are being taken into consideration when people are making decisions on their behalf. So, I'll see you out on the campaign trail. Vote for Brie.
Re-elect me as your communications officer, and I will increase the presence of the union online by continuing our project for a new website, on campus through the creation of a new building, and by ensuring that officers get out of their offices and start talking to students. I will strengthen student media by securing even more funding for new equipment and by facilitating all of our outlets working more closely together. And I will also make sure that your views are always taken into account by renewing our commitment to listen to you and react to your views to shape your students' union. Vote Imogen for communications.
Hi, my name is Michael Segalov and I'm running for Comms Officer. And next year I want to make sure in my position that we continue to campaign for a more democratic university and a more open-door students' union. Students should have a say in what goes on at the university, and part of this will be the Student Charter programme that we've been working on throughout this year and want to cement into the students' union and in the university next year. I also want to continue to work on the community comms programme we've been working on, making sure that young people in the local community can take advantage of the expertise and equipment we've got in the students' union. And finally, I want to make sure that we continue to put Sussex at the heart of the education debate nationally, both in the national press, local press and in the students' media stuff we're doing on campus already.
Okay, so welcome Imogen AD. We've got Michael Segalov and Brie Allegretti as well. We'll start as always with the general questions, and we will start with Michael. But the general question is, how will you make the union more accountable? Minutes from meetings, they're boring, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they
can be sometimes, but it depends on how they're presented. I think that the answer to this is really threefold. The first thing is, the problem with accountability is students don't know who's in the union and what they're doing. So the first thing I propose is a public audit. We film everyone in the union who works there. So the public and the students know exactly who works there, what they do, how they can be contacted. And that way students feel engaged with what's going on. I think the second part is that the important stuff the Students' Union does, especially with its negotiations and communications with university management, students don't know what's happening there either. Those minutes need to be made public. Officers need to report back from those meetings, telling students exactly what's going on so they know. And finally, our student media needs to be empowered to actually hold the union to account. They need to have the opportunities and ability and the training to stand up when the union don't commit and don't fulfil their role to hold them to account properly.
Okay, Imogen, we'll now go over to you. Same question, how will you make the union more accountable? Minutes from meetings, they're boring, aren't they?
So first off, I believe that we need to continue and complete our review of our democratic structures. So that's things like council, our members' meetings and referendums, and ensure that decision-making becomes inclusive and understandable and transparent so that students feel they can get involved and they understand how and why decisions are being made. Lots of students don't really understand how any decisions in the union are made and have therefore become sort of disengaged. So if we put the power back in hands of students and back into structures that are understandable, that would really help. And then also officers need to be visible on campus and talking to students. So I'd continue the Out There Officers project that we started this year, getting all of the officers out and meeting our society, sports and student media, and also extending that to visiting schools of study. And if students can see officers out there and talk to them about why they're making the decisions they're making and what they're doing for students, then I think that would be really important.
Okay, and finally we'll move over to Bree. Bree, how will you make the union more accountable? Minutes from meetings, they're boring, aren't they?
Well, accountability is the first point on my manifesto of ABC, which is to make the union accountable, beneficial and communal. It should arguably the primary point of any manifesto for a communications officer because they want to make sure that the union is communal, beneficial and accountable to the students and making the university accountable. It doesn't mean bombarding students with minutes. It literally just means having officers out there in Library Square, talking to people, chatting to students about their everyday experiences of university, which is ultimately what they want. An editorially independent student media as well would ultimately be able to hold officers and the university to account as much as possible. Being told that something isn't news doesn't seem very accountable to me. Making sure that you pioneer pieces in the Badger like I've done to hold manifestos against the officers and ensure that they've done what they say they're going to do is the pinnacle of accountability for me. And I think probably one of the most important things is to make sure that all of the conversation and the dialogue between the university and the union and also the students is democratically led.
I'm afraid that's the 1 minute. We'll now move over to the personal manifesto questions and we'll start with you, Imogen. On your manifesto, what we found was why is funding for more new equipment for student media a priority in a time of severe financial constraints for the union? Where will this money come from?
So already this year we've secured a £15,000 grant from the university, from the Alumni Fund, for new equipment, and that's enabled the Badger to have a brand new bank of Macs and also for UniTV to have some new equipment for live broadcasting such as tonight, and they're continuing to spend that money on being able to broadcast in HD. I just think it's essential that we really shape student media for the future and give them the equipment that allows them to be able to do this and create the great output that they do. There's lots of struggles at the moment with money obviously in the union, but it's essential that we do finance these things that are so important to students. And there are lots of different funding places that we can get funding, for example from the Alumni Fund again, which is kindly donated by previous Sussex students, and also looking into different ways of getting funding, for example grants from outside bodies, or from bodies that work, for example with media charities and things like that.
Okay, so we'll now go to Michael. Michael, your personal manifesto question. You want to, in your manifesto you said you want to create a public dialogue with the university. Can you work constructively with the university after you've been such a vocal critic of them?
Yeah, and I think I can. And I think it's really important that we bear in mind exactly what it is that students, staff and faculty have been campaigning for on campus for the last 2 years. There was a referendum held by the Students' Union last year, which was questioning lots of things that students have been campaigning for, all of which passed with a democratic mandate. I think that's really important. And in relation to how I personally can, I think the work that I do already in the media, you know, holding universities, trying to anyway, to account for decisions they make, both in the national press, written and on kind of in TV and broadcast media, is really key to this. I don't think it's fair to say that just because you're a critic of someone, you can't work constructively with them. Universities, especially Sussex, are the home of dialogue, the home of debate, the home of criticism. That's the point of what universities have always been. And that's what Sussex is known for. That's what it's at the forefront of doing. I think hopefully students need to be representing that and embodying that. I don't think that dialogue and communication with the university needs to just come in the form of protest or just in the form of getting frustrated and angry and critiquing them. It's about working forward on actions where we can work together. And that's something really important. Part of the manifesto is a student charter, which will embed ways in which...
To end you there,
no worries.
Okay, so we'll now go for the additional comments after we've spoken to... No, we'll go for the additional comments. Sorry, I was just speaking to my producer. We'll go for the additional comments now that you have... No, sorry, we'll go for Bree. Apologies. Bree, we'll now go for you. What do you think is currently preventing students raising their own issues that your drop-in surgeries would fix?
The union doesn't communicate properly with its students, and so the students don't feel that they have ways in which they can address the issues that they have. A drop-in surgery is how MPs deal with those individual concerns, and how I think it would be one of the ways that would be best to help students feel like that they could come to us. Communicating with them in any range of sense, I mean, in terms of what I can do, but also in terms of what we can empower our student media to do, giving the Badger a new tech section, pioneering a fantastic science section, doubling the number of applicants from Life Sciences School under my editorship of the Badger, has meant that I hopefully have managed to, in the frame that I've been able to use so far, encourage students from different backgrounds that don't have any representation in the union currently, or at least little in comparison to other schools. That means that they'll be able to come forward and address things that they really want to, rather than feeling that they can't because they're not communicated with efficiently enough as it is.
Okay, Bree, thank you very much indeed. We'll now head over to the additional comments finally. And what we'll do is we'll ask you to comment on anything that's been said. Michael, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think drop-in surgeries are an idea that's been tried at the union before. 3 years ago they were introduced, and I think they were stopped because no one found them useful or used them. And it's interesting. I'm interested to find out what it is you're proposing that is different to what's happened before. I also think in terms of providing better support for student media, yes, throwing money is important.
Can we just let Bree answer one question first, and then we'll...
So drop-in surgeries can't work if students don't feel able to come forward already. You have to mobilise them and then give them the support of the ways to come forward and deal with those things. So it's a way of dealing with it, but arguably, yes, there's a step that needs to happen before that, which is that you communicate with them and engage with them so that they feel happy to be able to do those things. Because it's obviously silly to say that no student has any issue on campus, all students know everything about the union. That's ridiculous. Those drop-in sessions would be useful if students knew about them, knew what they were for, and knew how to access them.
And Imogen, how do you feel about this idea of a drop-in session?
I've got to say I agree with Michael. I agree that students don't necessarily come and speak to us. They just don't find the need to sort of come and approach officers. But we found this year through our Out There Officers campaign, when we've gone out and we've already met about 25% of our sports societies and student media groups, that we've already engaged with hundreds of students that we wouldn't otherwise have engaged with. And it's just a far better method to actually go out and talk to students themselves.
Bree?
Can I just say, it's great that you're doing that. It's a fantastic programme. The problem is that you're engaging with people who are already in some way involved in the union. You're engaging with student media and sports teams. And the problem is that there have been, in the last 3 years, no elected officers from 6 of the Sussex schools. There are people out there that do not feel represented or engaged or communicated with. And it's great that you're communicating with people who already have some involvement, but you really need to get to the bottom of the problem.
Michael, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
To this point, or something separate?
Well, I think just keep it on this point because we don't have much time left over. Oh no, we've got to cut it there apparently, I'm afraid, sorry. Okay, yeah, no, I'd like to thank you guys for coming along today, and good luck to each and every one of you. Thank you very much also to you guys. Please keep your tweets coming in. We are retrieving them right now. You can tweet via the hashtag Sussex Elections, or you can even get involved in the UniTV Facebook page as well. I'll be reading your tweets throughout the show, hopefully after the break, in fact. We'll be back after this short break.
Okay, let's get the show on the road. Present arms. I know the feeling. Is that so?
Don't you worry, because...
Whatever! Now just watch the power of God cure this man. The power of Christ compels you! What the bloody hell was that? I said raise your arms, you fools.
Intro short one, take one.
Hey guys, it's Olivia with UniTV.
Hello, this is Sophie Howard reporting for UniTV.
Welcome back from the break. Well, thank you very much for your tweets using the hashtag Sussex elections. We've got one from @SusieC20. She says, so proud of Ben Perkins on candidate question time. Well informed and great at articulating his views. Another one's from @WaxJacketCo. Really enjoying the show, guys, and the Jonny Meah show. Charming as ever. Thank you very much, Wax Jacket. Right, we will now move on to the next round of candidates. They're running for activities officer. The activities officer, if I can say it, is responsible for sports clubs, societies, and volunteering projects organised by the student union. To find out who could be your next activities officer, let's have a look at these introductions.
Hi, my name is Jess and I'm running for Activities Officer. I want to bring new, unique and exciting events to Sussex both in Freshers Week and throughout the year. I will make it easier for clubs and societies to fundraise for themselves, provide an additional Wednesday night option and campaign for accessible, free and social sport for all around campus. I want creative societies to be able to showcase their talents in permanent facilities. And finally, I want to make it easier for you to get involved in volunteering through organised days and events. I have a lot of ideas for this year, so please check them out at votejess.com and vote yes for Jess.
Hi everyone, I'm Lindsay Burtonshaw and I'm running for Activities Officer and I'm here to help you go and do. First of all, I want to make the Activities Office a cosy, approachable space where we can discuss your hopes and dreams for your society. Second, I want to reform the books process so that you can have your club and your team going in the direction you want so that Sussex can excel to its full potential. Third, I want to set up a Stanmer Park half marathon to get the staff and students in our back garden more. And fourth, I want to continue to support the Recycle Bike Hire Cooperative so we can get around our city quicker, cheaper and easier.
Okay, so the general questions. First of all, let's welcome Lindsay Burtonshaw, Jessie Stanbrook and Rob Wood. Hello, guys. We'll start with the general questions. Candidate Lindsay Burtonshaw, we'll start with you. Should the priority for sports clubs and societies be to get more students involved or for the groups to perform really well? Quality or quantity?
So I think dichotomizing it is a little bit too narrow way of looking at it, but in my capacity as a University of Sussex Students' Union officer, I'd be working within the policy. So I'd be looking at the policy of equal opportunities and the safe space policy. So I'd be looking at providing access to sport and societies for people. That would be my remit as within that job. So already I've got quite a lot of experience doing this. I've run the cycling club for 3 years. I've been the captain of the cycling club and I've also set up Recycle Bike Hire Cooperative where we've been trying to provide cycling to people, and the idea is that if you provide an entry-level access to a society or a club, then people can then further themselves. They can find their own way to develop whatever opportunity that they want to with it. You need to push people when they get passionate about something. So I think access is absolutely a priority, and also I think that sports and societies are never one or the other. They're always a diverse set of activities. For instance, taster sessions are always a broad range.
Lindsay, I'm going to have to stop you there, I'm afraid. We're going to now move over to Jessie. Jessie, again, same question. Should the priority for sports clubs and societies be to get more students involved or for the groups to perform really well? Quality or quantity?
So I think it's important for sports teams to perform well, and I want to support them to do that by ensuring the maximum amount of funding possible is accessible to them. but I do think that it's a priority to get students involved in all sports. It doesn't necessarily mean that we should try and get every student involved in a Sussex sports team or a big successful society. One of my manifesto points is to try and get more people involved in free and social sport around campus. I want to put up ping pong tables, basketball hoops, pull-up bars, a giant chess set, things like that to get everyone involved that want to be. For societies, I want to listen to students for any new ideas they have and make sure they have all the resources they need to start anything. For existing societies, everyone is different, so each excels on different numbers of members. Everyone should have the chance to join or start anything they have interest in. So as long as people can always join societies, that's the most important thing. So initially, the priority will be to get people involved and then to make sports and societies at Sussex the best they can be.
Thank you, Jessie. Right, we'll now move over to Rob. Rob, again, same question. Should the priority for sports clubs and societies be to get more students involved or for the groups to perform really well, quality or quantity?
Well, thank you. And firstly, I want to say, obviously, the most important thing we can do is get absolutely everybody who wants to get involved in absolutely anything they want to get involved and get them doing that to absolutely the best they can. And I know that this is going to cause a big problem because if we're going to introduce a massive new quantity of things, where are we going to put them all? We're already at capacity. I've got a load of plans to give us all of those spaces we need to open up to let there be this many more sports clubs and societies. We've got Falmer House, which are currently kind of underutilised in certain places. We can open that up. The sports centre, again, that's going to have, there's quite a lot of big plans in motion to get that a little bit bigger in certain areas, and we can push that. And of course, there's new venues we've got. We've got the Globe venue in town, which is going to be probably kind of hard to do some certain sports in there, but you certainly can get some societies downstairs in there using up that space. So I think definitely quantity, and we can do that.
Okay, Rob, I'll have to end you there, I'm afraid. We'll go to the personal manifesto question. We'll start with Jessie. Jessie, reading your manifesto, where will you find the money and space to create a permanent dance studio?
Sussex is situated right next to a really new development, Backer. There's a lot of space there. I've been there quite a few times with my society and sports. And there are currently some negotiations with the university to potentially try and get some of the space there. They've got fields, they've got a dance studio, they've got staging, they've got all this stuff. And it doesn't have to be funded. You can exchange things like volunteering and coaching opportunities for the schools there. Also, the Attenborough Centre is being developed right now. I think it's 2015 that it's going to be established. I'm definitely going to be lobbying the university to have space for all societies and sports in that, especially the new dance studio.
Okay, so tell me, what can the students gain from this?
Well, the permanent dance studio?
Yeah.
There's quite a few dance societies at Sussex, and a lot of them have expressed a lot of interest in having a permanent dance society studio. At the moment, they've got put up mirrors in Falmer House, and because of the quantity of them, I think it's important for them to have that. We've got a lot of creative societies, and they can use that space as well as dance societies, so I think it's important.
Okay, thank you, Jessie. We will now move on to Rob. Rob, we'll go on to you next. You say you'll make it easier for societies to grow and develop.
Yep.
How do you intend to do this?
Well, the first thing I touched on earlier was obviously the space. That's quite a large limiting factor at the moment. Speaking to the club and society I've spoken to, a lot of them say the big problem is getting somewhere to just be. The other thing is obviously funding. That's something which a lot of clubs and societies aren't actually aware of the current amounts of funding available to them and where they can go to. So I want to literally go around and talk to every single committee and make sure that they know exactly what the union can give them, what we can do to them to let them grow to the size they want to be. And new buildings are definitely going to help with that. And yeah, as you say, the Attenborough Centre hopefully will be around quite soon, and we can do amazing things when that does eventually come to us.
Okay, we will now move on to the chance to answer any additional comments based on what's been said after we've spoken to Lindsay. What is the new Transition Sustainability Network in your manifesto? How will students benefit?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. I've been looking into this a lot because there's all these really exciting societies popping up. There's the Sussex Root Society, which has secured a £5,000 lottery grant. They work at the allotment behind Brighthelm. There's Shoots, which is providing a £5 veg box on campus. There's the Waste Society that's trying to tackle food waste, which is obviously a very current issue with the use of food banks at the moment. There's the Recycle scheme, which is promoting sustainable transport. This is all under the umbrella of sustainability and a sort of moving towards a permaculture lifestyle, sort of moving on to a new alternative. And it's very positive, it's very exciting. At the moment, we're trying to link up all these societies in Sussex. There's a conference, so everyone's going to talk and discuss ideas. It's very participatory, very cooperative. And we're also linking up with the wider national movement, so it's very current and it's really, really exciting. We could do a lot with this, and I think Sussex could be the place to lead on a national movement.
And Lindsay, why do you think the students would really benefit from this?
It has so many benefits. For instance, with the cycling issue, which I'm particularly passionate about, it's cheaper, it's easier and it's quicker for people to get around by bike, and obviously we know how expensive Brighton and Hove buses are. I don't need to explain that monopoly. With regards to food waste, if there was less food waste, food prices would be cheaper, and obviously no one really wants food waste because it's just a chronic waste of resources. There's all sorts of benefits to students. Recycling, just having a more of a harmonious relationship with the resources we use.
Okay, we will now go for the additional comments. We'll start with you, Rob. Do you have anything to say based on what's been said?
I don't really have anything to be said based on what you said earlier today. On that, it all sounded pretty good, and we should definitely do everything you said as well. I think all we can be here is be there for the clubs and societies and the volunteers, so we can give them everything they need to do what they want. I don't have any specific comments. Sorry.
Okay, Lindsay. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I just had a question for Jess about you say in your manifesto that you want to make it easier for clubs and societies to fundraise, and just because I've been involved in RAG and I've fundraised quite a bit in the past, I wondered how, as an officer, you would try and help people fundraise, because it's quite difficult.
As I'm president of the Mohawks, so we've run into a lot of difficulties this year with fundraising for all the tournaments that we have to go to. I want to make organised things so people can sign up for or join or apply for. So the Globe, the pub in town, every week I want to implement a pub quiz that a society or sports club can sign up to and say, I'm organising a pub quiz this week and all the proceeds will go to them. So that's one kind of idea that I have. I've got a few more in the works, but
cool.
It's yet to come.
Sounds great.
Rob, would you add anything to
the Globe? I want to put a theatre in it. Big thing I want to do. Yeah, the Drum Society has been hunting for a venue for a while, and the downstairs of the Globe looks like a pretty exciting place to put a play on. They're already doing one this term, so it's that's a little bit in the works. What's physical going to be in the space? Obviously, they don't want to tread on the toes of everyone else.
Okay. All right. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, candidates, and good luck. We will now swiftly be moving on to the welfare officer round. Now, the welfare officer round, the welfare officer, not the round, the officer covers any non-academic student concerns that need to be dealt with from accommodation even. It covers from accommodation, I'll get there in the end, to student safety. It's a long show. To find out your next welfare officer, have a look at these next introductions.
Hi, my name is Rihanna Gargiulo and I want to become your welfare officer. My priorities include improving affordability in housing and travel, safety and wellbeing, including a Get Home Safe taxi scheme, and improving the mental, physical and sexual health services on campus, as well as improving and promoting diversity in campaigns and widening participation. Vote Rihanna to make Sussex shine bright like a diamond.
Hi, my name's Jessie Seal and I'm running for welfare officer. I want to work with the union, students and university staff to create a more democratic and sustainable institution for the future. I also want to improve transport links to and from campus through increasing access to bikes through recycled bike hire and through increasing bike sales at the beginning of term. Additionally, I really want to work on affordable accommodation on campus and start the process of a university-led, union-led student housing cooperative.
Please welcome, forgive me if I get this wrong, Rihanna Gargiulo. Gargiulo. There we go. And Sophie van der Ham and Jessie Seal. Nice easy names for me there. As always, I'll ask the general question to all of you, and then each of you will answer questions based on your manifestos after that. So we'll start with Jessie. What is the biggest student welfare issue at Sussex, and how would you address it?
So firstly, I think it's really important to acknowledge that for lots of different students, lots of different groups of students and different individuals, there are different welfare issues that affect them individually. And so I think it's really important that, for example, the Advice and Representation Centre remains well funded, that people know where it is, how to access it. But going a bit wider and going back to the original question, I think student accommodation, and particularly price and quality of student accommodation, is a massive issue for students. And so what I want to do is start the process of a student union-led student cooperative. So what this is it's a way of housing that students run and partly own the house, which means that we can control rents, we can control quality, and that means that we have control over that. It rises with our student loans instead of being dependent on private landlords or the university.
Okay, Jessie, thank you. Sophie, we'll go to you next. What is the biggest student welfare issue at Sussex, and how would you address it?
I think that Jessie gave a really good answer in terms that there are different issues for different students. But going a bit broader than accommodation, I think it's definitely a cost of living crisis. I think we've all felt it in Brighton, or just in the UK generally. And because of this cost of living crisis, rents have risen disproportional to inflation. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that students are struggling to pay their bills and to pay for food and to heat their homes. And transport costs have risen, but maintenance grants haven't. So government, I think, is intending to get rid of grants, which is really worrying. And universities will play a bigger role in providing bursaries and scholarships to students. And what I want to do is to push the institution, to push University of Sussex, to give more bursaries and grants for students from disadvantaged backgrounds and for international students who don't have any funding.
Okay, thank you, Sophie. And finally, Rihanna, what is the biggest student welfare issue at Sussex, and how would you address it?
So basically, we've got very similar points on our manifestos, and I think we've all kind of decided that affordability and financial problems are the main issue for most students. However, I would like to point out that I think mental health and sexual harassment, and this is why I've prioritised the Time to Change campaign and the Zero Tolerance campaign on my manifesto, are probably the biggest issues in terms of the severity of their impact for the fewer students that face them, but still very important. Nevertheless, coming back to the question, I think that affordability and financial problems are the biggest problem. So I would seek to improve affordability in housing and travel, like the other two have said. But I think it's more important than just trying to lobby bus companies and such and lobbying the university, because it's not necessarily going to get the results you need. So I would look to create subsidies for lower income students for travel. And
sorry, I'm going to have to stop you there, Rihanna. It's only a minute. With the that's right, personal manifesto question. I'm sure you can develop on it then. Personal manifesto question. We'll start with Sophie. What would your new feminist union campaign aim to achieve?
That's such a great question. So I've been successful in wrapping up the Zero Tolerance campaign, and we'll be concluding it soon, because we've put out a little booklet that we call a zine to 5,000 new freshers, and I've put it in every single freshers bag, explaining sort of myths around consent and sexual relationships, and I think that's had a big impact, and I've had lots of people talking about it. We've also been successful in pushing for a change in internal reporting systems for sexual harassment, getting frontline staff trained, and I think it's time to conclude it, and I want to start a new campaign with students' input, because the last campaign came from the National Union of Students, and I want something that is Sussex specific, and that's why I want to ask FemSoc and Women's Group for their input.
Okay, and what do you think would be the main benefit for the students from this?
For a feminist campaign?
Yeah.
Well, I think that we can all acknowledge that men and women aren't equal in society yet. They are equal in terms of legal statutory requirements in the Equality Act, but there is inequality still in pay, for instance, women students take 10 years longer to pay off their student loans than their male counterparts. And there are also differences in the way students are treated in class. For instance, the NUS lad culture research has pointed out that lad culture can be harmful for female students. And what I also want to emphasise is that there are differences in the types of oppression women face. So black women, Muslim women, queer women might face different types of barriers and problems than white women.
Okay, Sophie, thank you very much. We'll now move on to Rihanna. Rihanna, what factors contribute to rape culture at Sussex and how will you tackle them?
I think that on the whole, this whole rape culture is something that I keep seeing in the newspapers and it's kind of a national problem. I think that possibly there is just a certain type of attitude that people have, and something like working better with liberation groups and including FemSoc and the women's group, like Sophie said, is really important in working out what the specific problems are that women specifically face. I'm also looking to, although it doesn't really capture that necessarily, but looking to improve safety on campus and off campus generally as well. So by introducing my taxi scheme, where students can get taxis home with their student card without any cash on them, improve safety and kind of a better, safer culture for students on campus.
And how likely do you think they'll be able to do to set up that kind of card?
I think obviously you have to work with with the taxi company, but it's something that has been done in other universities and in lots of university towns, and we're one of the only universities that doesn't really offer something similar. Others have like a bus that goes from campus that's a separate university run thing, but I think with funds it's better to try and work in partnership with a business that already has the money. And I think also you can show them the benefits that actually, from my perspective, it's helping drunk people. From their perspective, they're exploiting drunk people, but essentially you're making the campus and Brighton generally safer for students.
Okay, Rihanna, thank you very much. Jessie, within your manifesto, we picked out, how would a Students' Union housing co-op work and how many students would it house?
So I think it's really important to note that this would be a pilot project, and it would also be a long-term project. So it would start off small with maybe a 10-bedroom house or 2 5-bedroom houses, which is what they've piloted in Birmingham. And so initially it would be a small project where those students and the Students' Union would be involved in making decisions about that and showing how it would work. By doing this, I'd like to kind of start off a real movement in the country generally about different ways of doing student housing, and also use it as a way to levy the university in particular to show them that there are alternative ways of funding student accommodation, and that, for example, with Northfield, it doesn't have to be that a student accommodation is £142.90 a week, and that you can have self-financing accommodation that goes in line with what the average student loan is and what the average student can afford, because that's really important.
And do you intend for this to be on campus or?
So I think it depends really what the feasibility is. It depends on how open the university are to interacting with this idea. I don't think that it necessarily has to be on campus, and in fact I think that there's lots of different options about looking at places off campus that could be purchased with either funds from the university, from the union, or there are numerous organisations that give either grants or low-cost mortgages to cooperative foundations. So I think that would be the best way to go.
Okay, thank you, Jessie. I'll now give you the opportunity to have any additional comments that you would make based on what each other has said. If we start with Rihanna, what do you have to say? I mean, if not, we could. Sophie, do you have anything to say?
I think the cooperative idea is a really great idea. I'm just not sure about how the university would react, because they don't look at the average student loan. They look at what international students are spending and what they have spent, and they base that on sort of benchmarking to other universities. So I would, even though it's a great idea, I don't really see the viability in it. How would you solve that?
So firstly, I think that I don't expect this to be a project that is in cooperation with the university. I think it's a project that the student union can lead on its own, that the student union can support students to lead on their own. So I very much see it as kind of the students' union and students taking on the accommodation crisis that we have and coming up with new solutions and new alternatives that we can do ourselves.
I mean, Rihanna, do you see this as a real problem, or?
Well, definitely the whole idea of unaffordable accommodation is a real problem. I actually was wondering, because I was looking at your manifesto earlier, you've spoken about working with Sussex student lettings, which is something that I've put in my manifesto as well. What would be your, my plan would be to expand it rapidly, massively, and make it the primary lettings agent for Sussex students. Obviously, that would take time, but eventually would create jobs for students and such. What are your specific ideas?
So I think there's a lot of stuff that Sussex student lettings are doing really well at the moment. What I'd want to see is an increase in working with the council to ensure that all the properties that we take on our books are environmentally friendly, are insulated to the standards, things like that. And also to work with Sussex students lettings to keep the fees free for students, to allow them better ways of being able to challenge landlords. I think that's an area that they could really expand on, is not just providing as a letting service, but also providing an advice service where people can challenge landlords when we have problems.
Okay, candidates. Thank you, candidates. Thank you very much. We will now move on to Education Officer. Now, the Education Officer is responsible for representing you and advising you on everything that is academic. They're responsible for overseeing the student rep scheme as well. So let's see this year's candidate introductions.
Gavin Harrison, your Community Engagement Officer. I want to be Education Officer next year. Our university is proposing rapid change and expansion. We're to continue to scrutinise these changes and campaign at a national level to defend higher education from cuts. One of the biggest issues for students is academic support. I think the university could do more on this issue. Ensure quality assessment feedback. Make timetables released earlier a priority. Improve the student mentor scheme. I think it's very undervalued. There's very little awareness about this, and there are very few student mentors. So students don't know where to go to get support from other students. I think we can integrate this into our academic societies more. So vote Gavin for education.
Hi, I'm Hazel, and I'm running to be your Education Officer. I want to enhance partnership and communications between students and university, to defend education by protecting university as a safe space for learning and critical thinking, and to upraise current practice standards to improve learning experience. Please check out my manifesto and vote Hazel for education. Thank you.
Okay, so this year we have more than 3 candidates running for Education Officer. So we've decided to divide the group into 2 parts. So for the first part, we have Gavin Harrison, Harrison and Hazel Tong. Hello, thanks very much for joining us. The same as always, general questions first and then the manifesto question. And you'll have a chance to discuss between yourselves, just the 2 of you, on what's been said. So the set question, we'll start with Hazel. Hazel, should students get money back if their teaching is cancelled because of strike action? Why or why not?
No, I don't think students should get money back because students are not passive consumers in education. They're not in the position to return the degree if they're not satisfied. Instead, students should be active participants in university to shape their learning and engage in critical thinking with staff members. Strike are meant to challenge the unfair staff pay and the whole marketisation regime in higher education, and paying students back money would exacerbate the current situation, and with the ever-rising tuition fee and austerity in education, paying students back would exacerbate the situation, and students should instead engage in meaningful communications with staff members and hopefully work constructively with them as a community.
Okay, we'll have to end it there. Gavin, same question.
I share the same view as Hazel on this issue. I think it's a really interesting issue because it's so prevalent recently. I can see the argument for it. In an ideal world, I think if something's been cancelled that we're paying for, students would like to see a return of money. But I think, firstly, logistically, it wouldn't be possible. We all do different subjects. We all have different contact hours. I think, secondly, and something I really do praise the Students' Union this year and the Education Officer this year, has been actually raising awareness about the wider issues in this, continuing marketisation and privatisation of higher education. And let's not forget here, the dispute over this strike isn't between students and academics, between academics and government at national level. So I don't think students should be saying, well, look, because it's cancelled, we should be paying. I think, as Hazel said, students are not passive consumers, they're active participants. So to strongly encourage the union to take a stance and say, well, look.
Okay, Gavin, what we'll do is we'll ask you first for your personal manifesto question. What do you think postgraduate and international students want from a more active community?
Yeah, I raised this in my manifesto because postgraduates and international students are integral to this university and in the union. Let's start with postgraduates first. They form about 23% of our student union body. And in previous years, they've kind of seemed less outside of the union's focus. But in recent years, past 2 years, we've actually taken steps to try and increase engagement with postgraduate students through the Postgraduate Association, and the Education Officer sits in the Postgraduate Association. So I'd really want to continue to build a Postgraduate Association, which really focuses on increasing engagement with postgraduate students. So taking some practical measures there to see what we can do for them socially, what we can do for them academically. Because the more postgraduate students who get involved, we can highlight their concerns, and both academically and on social opportunities. On international students, regarding international students, again, about 25% of the student population are international students. I think this is a more difficult one because they do feel like they're their own little community, but more isolated from the Students' Union. So I think what we have to do is, I would want to continue to do, is support the International Student Society and work, like Hazel has currently been this year, the International Student Representative. I think there has to be a close relationship between the Education Officer and the Society and the Representative to identify what international students want. And then we can deal with their issues both on campaigns. There's a number of issues affecting international students, which I won't go into now, but there's some serious issues that need to be addressed. And ensuring that international students are engaged with the union in terms of activities, so on the social front too.
Okay, Hazel, you say you will ensure effective student consultation in university decision making. How will you improve on what has already been started? Tried, sorry.
Yep. I'd like to try to engage communications between students and the university management, especially because I mean this year loads of events going on campus in Sussex that affects relationship between management and students. I want to engage management with students, talk to students, invite them to events, union events, talk to students, let them know what students want, and also to engage in communications between student reps and the schools and management and the union as well, so that they students know there's a channel for them to voice their opinions and make changes.
Okay, so what do you think? What makes you so sure that students would want to consult with the university about these issues?
Because it's teaching learning that affects them. At the moment, like I'm in psychology, I've got course-mates that sometimes raise issues with, I'm a student rep as well, so raise issues with us, and because they want to make a change in their course, because it affects their teaching learning, and they want to have better education, and they want to get the most out of their education and time at Sussex.
Okay, thank you, Hazel. We will now do the additional comments based on what each other said. Very easy, just the two of you. Gavin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you pointed out in your comments just then, you said you want more students to be able to consult with officers and university management. Would a more effective way be to actually review the student mentor scheme, review the student rep scheme, and review the democratic structures here, and union academic societies, so they're more closely involved? Because I think students have lots of things happening in their lives. They don't want to take these formal routes to consult with each other. So wouldn't a more appropriate route be integrating these different aspects of what is available to students, so students know what's there, and students can have more informal ways of consulting and raising their issues, so that then we can deal with them appropriately.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I agree. There should be more communications between student reps, between like academic societies and union in general, and with management as well. Because I mean, as you said, students might not want to engage in like formal routes to like directly challenging the university, but I think it's really important to get university management to really talk to students, because I mean at the moment I never see our Vice-Chancellor, and I only see our pro Vice-Chancellor in meetings that only like several student reps attend, and I think it's really important to talk to university management as education officer to engage them with students.
and to let them reach out for students.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree that there must be connections between academic societies, student reps, and like all those informal
services
groups.
that are available.
Yep.
Yeah, no.
Hazel, anything to ask Gavin?
Regarding the our set question on strike,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think? Like, many students complain to me as a student rep.
Gavin, we have 10 seconds to answer this. It's
that they cannot attend the lectures.
Yeah.
What remedy would you?
I think it's important. I think what I would say is try and see if we can encourage schools to reschedule them. But I think that probably undermines the purpose of the strike. And also see lecture recordings from last year. If they're published on Study Direct, get the last year's lecture recording onto Study Direct so students aren't.
Gavin, we're going to have to end it there. Thank you very much, both of you. Gavin and Hazel, thank you very much and good luck. We'll now go for the second round for the Education Officer. So let's have a look at their candidate introductions.
Hello, my name's Bethan and I'm running to be Educations Officer in the university elections. I think you should vote for me because I'm really concerned about the university's expansion plan for an extra 2,000 students and the impact this will have on your education experience. I want to improve education by rolling out e-submissions for all, eradicating high travel costs and saving time. I also want to improve Wi-Fi across campus and call for a review of the mitigating evidence scheme which failed students during the January submission period. So if you're hunting for a better education, vote for me in the elections.
Hey everyone, my name's Lewis Nilsson. I'm a third year history student and I'm running to be your education officer because I think we need a students' union that campaigns against all the different pressures that students face from the Tory government and from management. And I think we can do this in two ways. Firstly, we need a students' union that campaigns against the financial pressures on students. And secondly, we need a students' union that fights for investment in student services like the library and student study spaces. We also need a union that really fights oppression and takes oppression seriously, campaigning against sexism, racism and homophobia. So if you want a student union that fights for you and fights for a better life for students, then vote for me.
Hello, I'm Fina Faith Praise. Vote for me. As the education officer, I will fight for fairer exam timetable, advancement in technological education, e-journal publication for undergraduate students, reduction in student workload, transformation of success education by reducing by zero tolerance to increment of tuition fee, and then reduction of all in-season strike. Please vote for me as the education officer.
Okay, so please welcome the second round of Education Officer. First of all, we have Bethan Hunt, Lewis Nilsson and Fina Faith Praise. Faith Praise. We'll get there. Okay, so we'll start with candidate Bethan Hunt. Should students, this is a general question which each of you will receive, should students get money back if their teaching is cancelled because of strike action? Why or why not?
Well, obviously as students we have experienced a number of strikes on campus this year, and I do really sympathise with students who are frustrated because we pay an awful lot of money to be here. We don't get a great deal of contact time. But what I would say to those students is that frustration should not be channelled at lecturers and should be channelled above that to senior management, and we need to put pressure on the right people. And I think it's just really important to kind of take a step back and look at the bigger picture. And the union doesn't take the decision to support a strike, lightly. And as a union, we do need to be able to challenge unfair conditions and act independently from the university. So to directly answer the question, I think students who do want a refund should take that to management, and as a union and as students we should actually work with lecturers to defend higher education.
Okay, Lewis, the same question to you. Should students get money back if their teaching is cancelled because of a strike, because of strike action? Why or why not?
Well, no, I don't think they should. I mean, I think really, like Bethan said, we shouldn't be angry with lecturers for taking strike. We should be angry with the government and senior management because let's look at the facts and look why they're going on strike. Their pay has been cut by 13% in the last 4 years. That's quite a lot. And then if we also look at the wider picture and we see that actually, this is actually part of the same austerity that is affecting students. The fact that we pay 9,000 in fees, the fact that our student loans are being privatised, the fact that we pay high rents and so on campus. So actually, I think it's part of the same fight. And actually, I think the students' unions should do much more actually to support the strike, and actually so we have students and workers united in defence of education.
Okay, thank you. Fina, same question to you. Should students get money back if their teaching is cancelled because of a strike? Why or why not?
Yeah, I would like to start by saying yes, students should get their money back because payment is for contact hours. I would also like to say that, like international students, most of the international students that you're seeing in Europe is as a result of more incident strike actions that we're having way back in our different countries. So because of that, a lot of students are trooping in here to say, okay, if I'm supposed to finish school today, let me just graduate the day I'm supposed to graduate, and less stress and less pressure. But because of this lot of strike going on now, there's a lot of pressure on students, a lot of pressure on stress on the students, and therefore, like I'll say that the government should pay back, like the administration should pay back, because if it is made compulsory that, okay, any moment, any day that there is strike action, since the lecturers are not being paid for that very day, then the money should be given back to the students. Then that will cut it down.
We'll go to Lewis for your personal manifesto question. We'll start with you. You say you support staff strikes. Would you support all industrial action, for example, a marking boycott, no matter their impact on current students' education?
Well, yeah, I think I would have to say that I do, because actually I think, again, we have to look at the wider picture here, right? And we shouldn't be angry with our staff who have had their pay cut. And the fact is, right, if you think about what this Tory government has done since they've come to power, to both students and staff and the whole of education, really, they've made us pay huge fees and now privatised our loan. They've cut staff wages. They've privatised whole sections of higher education. They're attacking secondary education as well with academies and so on. So actually, I think we should fully support any kind of industrial action that teachers take, because they don't take it lightly, and it's not like they're being selfish, and it's not like they're overpaid. Actually, what they're doing is saying that what the Tories and our management, what their plans for education are actually wrong, and actually we shouldn't stand for it. So I actually totally support them, and I think the student union could do a lot more to do that.
But do you not feel that maybe students should be, or the staff, for example, should be taking it elsewhere rather than the students having to suffer directly as a result?
Well, you could say that, but I think, you know, like I said, they don't take this decision lightly, innit? And actually, they've been through all avenues. They've tried to have as much dialogue with the government. The government's not listening. You see it with what they're doing with the NHS and with the whole of the public sector in general. Actually, the Tory government aren't listening. And I think we need more militant student unions to actually combat that.
So you think that the students should essentially take it higher than even the university?
Well, yeah, I think you've got to be part of a national picture. You know, education nationally is under attack. They are fundamentally trying to change what education means in this country. And I want Sussex Student Union to be part of a fight back against that.
Okay, thank you very much. Fina, we'll go to you next. You are a postgraduate researcher and associate tutor. What differing perspective and focus might you bring to the education officer role?
One of the things I will bring forth is work experience.
Work experience?
Work experience. Like for the individual IT students, at least you should have your work experience, like your IT station should be on the areas of your specialty. Not like during the, you're studying mechanical engineering, and instead of you going to mechanical industries to have your work experience, you rather go to shop to start studying. Or if you're a media student, instead of you going to the media industry to practice, they send you, okay, we don't have space here, then you start looking for extra. So that is one of the things I will bring forth here. And secondly, I think I will fight against academic starvation. That has to do with a lack of resources. Like there are a lot of lack in the resources that we encounter here in University of Sussex. There are some resources we may want to make use of, like go through the net, like there are some papers online. You're trying to find out some certain things, like that you see it quite well as if the university subscribe to those papers, but at the end of the day, there are some pages that are the most important ones. They'll tell you you cannot view those pages, and they are so important for you, and yet you are told that the university subscribe to those pages, to those very papers or those journals. So all those things, I'll have to fight against it to make sure we have good resources and then good technological know-how for our researchers.
Thank you, Fina. We'll now go to Bethan. It's your turn. Will your additional social spaces in the library replace quiet areas? What about people who want to work in quiet places?
Well, what I meant by that was I know a lot of people have mixed opinions on so-called library monitors, you know, making sure that it's quiet, making sure that you can't eat and drink. And, you know, while I do understand that obviously the library has to stay clean and quiet, I think it's quite frustrating when you're working to a deadline, you know, you're quite stressed out, that you can't, you know, just have a cup of coffee or a drink. So what I meant by social spaces was more spaces where you can come out of the library and just kind of relax and get away from work. Because the library cafe at the moment is far too small, and as we all know, when you go at lunchtime it's like a fight to get any seat. So what I meant by social spaces was, you know, spaces to have lunch and just, you know, get out of that study bubble, you know, when you need to.
And do you think why do you think students need that?
I think students need that because when, like I say, when you are working to a deadline, we all know you need to take a quick break. You can get fuzzy if you've been staring at a computer, been staring at a book too long. And that was what I was trying to combat. You know, if you're in the library for, you know, you're doing a full day, you need somewhere where you can go and chill out and you can relax and get away from it for half an hour, and then you will work more effectively. And I think it's a problem with the university as a whole that there's not enough social spaces where you can just go and relax. So I think it's something that does need to be tackled, you know, more widely. But obviously as education, it's something that I see as really important in the library and obviously contributing to how you study.
Okay, Bethan, thank you very much indeed. I'll now give you all the chance to debate with yourselves, not literally yourselves, with each other. And yeah, any issues that have been raised. Let's start with Bethan.
Well, I think the whole issue of strikes is obviously very controversial, and obviously, you know, we've had quite a good debate about it. And I suppose it's more of just a comment to the wider Students' Union that we kind of need to have more of a dialogue about how we can combat these issues that we're talking about more effectively, because I do feel that sometimes students are the ones that are getting annoyed, and as I think we've kind of agreed on, it needs to go higher than that. So it's more of a kind of question to everyone, like not specifically you two, but how we can as a students' union, you know, strike more effectively and affect senior management and wider than that, and not, you know, kind of frustrate those people who we need, you know, on our side, as it were. So.
And Lewis, what would you say?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I think really the problem really, I think, with the union at the moment is that actually not enough is done to really raise awareness about issues and actually include students. And that's not an attack on any officers or people in the union right now, but I think actually we've got to change our strategy. And we've really got to try and include students in all campaigns that we have. And I think that, you know, a lot of reason why people are angry about the strikes is because actually they don't really know what the strikes are about. So I think a lot can be done on the student union side for actually raising awareness and organising campaigns against it.
And Fina, would you agree that awareness is key?
Yeah, awareness is key to this very strike action we're talking about. But one thing I really want to emphasize and say is that if money is being paid back to students from the administration, from the authority, you discover that that will certainly cut down the number of strikes that they were allowed to. Because if you now said, okay, for every strike day, refund the money, administration refund the money all back to all the students, you will see that what they're supposed to pay to the lecturers for a day is rather smaller than what they are going to refund to students. So because of that, they're going to cut it down.
I'm going to cut it short there just for time reasons. I was going to go to you two to respond to that, but we're going to have to move on because of time. But thank you very much, guys, for coming in, and good luck. Good luck. We've got some tweets. Please do keep tweeting in. Please keep tweeting in with the hashtag Sussex elections. We've got some here from Cal saying, so proud of the beautiful Rihanna right now. Vote for her as welfare officer. We've got one also saying Sophie Vanderham is killing it. Best candidate for welfare by far. That's from Dolly Punk V. And that is it. We will now be moving on to the final round, and the role that within the USU, it could be described or is described as the figurehead. Now, this is the president. This elected candidate will be expected to attend both the Senate and Council of the university, as well as the essential decision-making meetings as well. So the role is to be the representative of the union, and let's find out who that could be with this year's introductions.
Hi, I'm Juliet. I'm your current education officer, and this year I'm running for president. Education is the foundation of our time at Sussex and beyond, and I want us to shape it by being confident, progressive and empowering. I want campaigns and liberation at the heart of what we do. I want us to develop stronger links with your schools, and I want us to work towards a new union building which works for societies and for students. So please vote Juliet for President.
Hi, I'm Abe Baldry. My priority as Union President would be to make improvements to your day-to-day experience of Sussex. I'd campaign for cheaper buses, better library facilities, faster Wi-Fi and somewhere on campus that sells food after 11 o'clock. I also want to target bad student landlords by making a database of property owners who fail to meet basic obligations to their tenants. I'd work to secure the future of Sussex by ensuring that campus facilities grow alongside student numbers and by making sure that the university continues to provide affordable housing after they demolish East Slope. You can see my full manifesto on the Student Union website.
So the final round, the President. Please welcome Juliet, Dan and Abe. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll start with the general question as always. And we'll be starting with Dan. So what sort of relationship would you have with the university senior managers? Friendly, frosty?
Well, the simple answer to that I would say is to have a constructive working relationship with them. This entails for us to be friendly when it's necessary and to be frosty when they do things that are disapproved by the union members. In order for the union to have more influence at the university, we must repair this relationship because right now they don't seem to be listening. If elected president, I will strive to improve this relationship and continue to act as a critical friend of the university. It's important that we maintain that critical friendship because we can really have effective management of these policies and effective changes that we want to see. And it's important that we build an actual personal relationship with these individuals on the board because it's not just a couple of people like the Vice-Chancellor. There are many on there and we can strive to get our message across. I understand that the union and management have differing views on many issues, particularly outsourcing, privatisation, and that's fair to have. What's important is that we engage with them and they allow us to have our opinions heard. So it's fundamentally critical to us and to students to develop a proper relationship, a working relationship, one that benefits us all. And to enforce this, I think we should have a students' charter that protects us, protects students from...
Dan, we're going to have to end you there. You can continue with that. No? Julia, we'll move to you next. Same question. What sort of relationship would you have with university senior managers? Friendly, frosty?
I think the relationship with university senior managers is incredibly important and we need to establish some sort of trust if we actually want to generate change by working with the university. And it's also incredibly important that we have a relationship with trust if we want to criticise the university, because if we want them to respect and listen to our opinions, we have to show them that we can work together. That said, the relationship between our union and the university is one of the worst in the country. The way they treat the students' union is appalling. It's something that we need to rebuild. This year, I've worked really hard with a lot of determination and persistence to have unprecedented access to the Vice-Chancellor and to work with him. And I think we're beginning to establish those bonds. But more importantly, I think we need to reduce our reliance on university senior management and build up those relationships with the schools. So this year I've been meeting with the heads of schools and I want to carry on that and make sure that we're not always in Sussex House, but we're actually working on the ground as well.
Okay, Juliet, thank you very much indeed. Abe, same question to you. What sort of relationship would you have with university senior managers, friendly or frosty?
Good question. I think the purpose of a students' union is to represent the interests of the students who are its membership. And most of the time, one would think that though the interests of the university and of the union are aligned together. But I don't think the union should be hesitant to be critical when they're not. To give you an example, 5 students were suspended last term for taking part in protest. Now, whatever your feelings are about the occupation, suspending students for taking part in protests is wrong. And I don't think the union should be afraid of being critical about that and of defending those students from the charges that have been levied against them. But this isn't to say that there isn't a lot of scope for the union and the university to work together. If I wasn't here this evening, I'd be at a meeting with a consultation which is trying to decide the future of East Slope. I think which is organised by the Students' Union, working with...
Abe, I'm going to have to end you there, but please,
fine.
In your personal manifesto. Julia, we'll start with you for the personal manifesto question. You say you would develop an alternative, an alternative vision for the university. What is this, and how would you do it?
I think it's an incredibly difficult time for higher education. And in my mind, this idea of an alternative vision comes when there's so much work to do to undo the damage to university funding at the moment, that we've got a long way between having an ideal funding system. And in the meantime, I think we need to establish a system where students view themselves as partners. It's kind of a language that's going around a lot in the student movement at the moment, and I think it's something that's really important. And the way I envisage kind of working up this partnership relationship with the university that really sidesteps the idea of consumerism and looks at us working collaboratively in education is largely through the student rep scheme, which I think is really important, and I've been a huge advocate of this year and hopefully improved a little. So I want to work with that, but that can easily be co-opted back into this consumer system. So I want to really empower those reps to talk about creating their curriculum and working together rather than just doing this sort of, this isn't good enough and I want more lectures. So it's kind of that conversation of getting students to feel empowered about taking part in the university, but not just feeding back in a consumer way.
And explain on this, how would you get them to feel this way?
So it's something that I've been working on this year. So for example, in Freshers Week, I introduced a What is a University event, which invited freshers to think critically about where they were coming. Because I know when I arrived at university, I kind of thought it was just a school, like a giant school, and actually I think it's quite different to that. So events like that and getting speakers in who ask these difficult questions like, why are we here? And what is education? And how do we deliver it? And who decides what we learn? Is a conversation that's kind of missing from campus at the moment. And I think it's something that we generate through events, through different online systems of getting students to be able to discuss these issues. And I also love helping academic societies to put on their own events and generate their own education, because I think that really contributes to this.
Okay, Juliet, thank you very much indeed. Abe, back to you. In your manifesto, you say that you would pressure the bus company to reduce fares.
Mm-hmm.
How would you do this effectively?
I'm glad you asked that question. Earlier last year, I reported Brighton and Hove Bus Company to the Office of Fair Trading for the way in which they put the Lemon Bus out of business by lowering fares and then went on to increase fares, which I think is a clear example of anti-competitive trading. And I'm in conversation with people at the OFT trying to resolve that issue. So that's one very concrete way in which I'm doing it. And if I was union president, that's work I'd take forward and would be able to put a lot more time into. So I think that's one avenue you can take. Alternatively, you can try and apply pressure at a local level with local councils. But I think those are two ways in which you can do that.
And what would you say? I mean, I know lots of students are opting for taxis instead of buses now. Do you think there's a clear importance that students should still be using the buses rather than taxis? And how would you ensure that they did that?
Well, I would first up challenge the fact that most students use taxis to get to university. I mean, I take the bus, and I'm pretty sure that most people in the studio take the bus as well. So, I mean, maybe at the end of a particularly long night out, you'd get a taxi. So I'm not really sure I understand where you're going, for example, with that
if you're going out, you're spending a lot of money as it is, and then you'd go out and then you'd got to expect to spend about another £10 on a taxi. Whereas on a bus, you'd still be spending around that, but you're going door to door on a taxi. Do you see what I'm saying? The students would surely rather go for a taxi. So what are you advocating with the bus that it seems likely? Is it likely that this can happen?
Again, I'm really not quite sure where you're going with this question. I mean, not that I want to get onto the specifics of how you get home at the end of a night out, but I'm not sure that's really the point of discussion here. I mean, I think having lower bus fares would make the biggest impact on most students most of the time. So I wouldn't really consider taxis to be a priority for if I was president.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Abe. We'll move on to Dan now. You say you will critically engage with the university expansion and outsourcing plans. How will you have an impact on them?
If I'm elected president, I will make sure that the students' views that are mandated are completely brought up in meetings with management. It's vitally important that we do engage these plans because it affects us and it affects the future, and it will affect students that are here now and students that were there for the past, because the way in which students evaluate the university will be based on facilities, will be based on teaching, and that will affect the standing rankings of the university, which could affect our potential jobs in the future. So that's quite important. In terms of engaging with this and critically engaging, I would certainly work with student groups and organisations that are interested in this issue, put it out to a referenda to make sure that students are always adhering to this, and make sure there's a good information and communication campaign so that students are always aware of what's happening. For example, right now, not many people are very aware of the issue about students' debt sell-off, people know it's happening, they don't really understand the repercussions, they don't understand what it means, and they'd be surprised to learn they're going to have to pay a lot more money when all things are done through and sold into the private sector. So making sure there's an awareness campaign is probably the most fundamental thing. Empowering the students and giving them the power to act in the ways that they want is vitally important, and letting them discuss with us so that we can discuss with this university to make sure it's a more amicable university, a more pleasant environment, and a better space to learn in.
And in what way would you make them more aware? How would you do that?
The students themselves. I'd certainly use enhance our communication services and work with the communications office to make that happen, and work with societies, because they're probably one of the best links to students. Societies, clubs, organisations, sports, and any sort of other student group that exists. We should bring them into meetings, bring out mass emails, but also try and engage them by having an online discussion and bringing complete democracy online for the union, so that views are actually engaged, people understand what's going on, and they can express themselves properly as well.
Dan, thank you very much. So that is all 3 of the personal manifestos over. We will now be taking it to the floor for you 3 to talk together. We'll start with Abe. Any questions you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I suppose there are a couple. Juliet, your manifesto you've spoken a lot about the student rep scheme, the ways in which you've reviewed it, and about academic societies. Do you not feel that, while a lot of this may be good stuff, it's stuff that's perhaps more suited to the role of education officer?
Yeah, I definitely thought that when I wrote my manifesto, and I thought long and hard about which position to run for. But I was really surprised when I came into this role about the lack of support for the education officer, and I don't think many people in the union would kind of think that was wrong. I don't have many staff members, and I've got a huge remit if you think everybody's here to do their degree. So the reason I stood for president is because I want to kind of bring a culture shift into the union where we resource and support the side that does campaigning and representation and looks after education as much as we do our sports and societies and media, which are vital. But I don't think that one comes at the expense of the other. So that's why I think that taking kind of a leadership role and being a spokesperson for the union and speaking out about education is really important.
Dan, would you add anything to that?
I have nothing to say on that issue. I don't to the question or to what Juliet said.
Well, what Juliet said, I mean...
I think that's a very good way to go about doing things. I believe that it's vitally important that we do resource the right areas properly. I do think the union does focus a little bit on sports and societies, and that's positive engagement, but there is a very important sector of education, and a lot of students aren't involved in sports societies, and there are a lot of students who need and require welfare and education services, so to focus on that is a good idea.
Perfect. Guys, thank you very much, and good luck. Good luck this year.
Thanks.
So that is it for candidate question time for another year. The voting now is going to be starting on Monday, the 17th of February at 9 AM, and it's down to you. So make sure you do get voting. It closes at 5 PM on the 21st of February. And if you've forgotten how or where to vote, then take a look at this.
Is quick and easy. All you have to do is go to sussexstudent.com/vote and log in with your Sussex username and password. You can log in at any time during the voting week to vote for all the candidates. Here you'll see all the positions that we're electing in this set of elections. For this test, we'll be voting for President Cat. Just click on Vote Now to see all the candidates. On this page, you'll see all the candidates and their manifestos and photos. Once you've read the manifestos, scroll to the bottom to vote. We use the alternative vote system, so you rank the candidates in the order of preference, starting with your first preference. You don't have to click all the preference boxes, and you can reopen nominations if you'd rather the elections were rerun in that category. If you want to register that you don't want to vote for any candidate in this position, or to reopen nominations, click Spoil Vote. Once you've selected your preferences, click Submit Vote. This will take you back to the screen with all the positions. You can log out now and log back in at any time during the voting week, or you can vote for the other positions. It's as easy as that.
Okay, so before we leave you, let's read a few more of your tweets. Thank you very much for watching so far, by the way. Cal says, question time has become such an institution of the Sussex elections. So proud and happy for UniTV. We've got one saying, Dan for president, Beth for operations officer. At Dolly Punk V has said, want to wave a Juliet for president banner enthusiastically. I'm glad you do. Kelly McBride says, really impressed by the show tonight. Well done, everyone. And finally, the Badger News. We're all enjoying UniTV's coverage of candidate question time. Thank you very much to Badger. So that's it from us here. Thank you very much for watching. Do make sure you vote. The people you have seen today will represent you. So A big thank you from us at UniTV and a big thank you from me, Jonny Meah. We'll see you next year. Take care. Bye-bye.